Yesterday, in my post-game video that I did after the talking about the Golden State Warriors win over the Portland Trail Blazers in Game 4 of their series, taking command of the series 3-1, I told you at the time that the news had just broke that Stephen Curry won the MVP award and that it was a unanimous choice. And I think I said something like, okay, this is going to be the gateway for the flood of fanboys to say, oh, well, see, this proves that he's greater than Jordan. He's greater than all these other guys. None of them ever got unanimous pick for MVP and all this. And Tracy McGrady, astutely, in my opinion, astutely pointed out that the reason why he's unanimous pick is because of the gross, how grossly watered down the league is now. And oh my God, all of these articles just shitting all over Tracy McGrady. You know, not looking at it from an objective standpoint. All right? I mean, just being total fanboys for Stephen Curry, using all these metrics to prove that his season is the greatest season in NBA history. Then I saw one article that had a picture of Stephen Curry holding his 2 MVP trophies. And it said something in the under the article, the subtext said, Stephen Curry holding his 2 MVP trophies, something Tracy McGrady knows nothing about. You know, I try to be objective in my videos. I try to be fair. But you know what? You motherfuckers want to pick on Tracy McGrady? I'm going to fucking lay it out there for you guys, all right? I'm not going to be fair. I'm going to speak my mind in this fucking video. I'm going to tell you what I really fucking think of Stephen Curry. I'm going to tell you what I really think of Stephen Curry and the Golden State Warriors. I'm not even just going to... Sometimes I let it out there a little bit, but I'm going to give it to you. All right? And if you don't like my fucking video, I'm sorry. I'm going to be fucking brutally honest. Yes, the NBA is watered down. Watered down. Yes, it is. All right? You want to know something? Put Tracy McGrady on a team with the overall talent that the Golden State Warriors have in this watered down league, and the Warriors probably would do pretty much the same thing. And everybody be sucking Tracy McGrady's cock, talking about he's the greatest shooting guard of all time, this, that, and the other. And we used to make the same argument with Kobe. If you take Kobe Bryant off that team, put Tracy McGrady or Vince Carter, the Lakers would still be a great team. Tracy McGrady was a great player, briefly, before injuries took a toll on him. But he was still able to stay an effective player. And I'll get into that in a little bit. All right. I'm going to tell you something about Stephen Curry. The reason why he's so beloved and why he's so, put out there for the masses, not going to like what I'm going to say, but it's the fucking truth. He's the acceptable Negro. He's the acceptable Negro. That's why they got the malcontent Monte Ellis out of Golden State, put in another acceptable Negro like Klay Thompson around. Okay, you got Draymond Green. Yeah, he's the wacky black kid and all that shit, that talk a little trash, but he's not going to bust a grape. Okay, this is the acceptable Negro team. Stephen Curry is like the black bag boy, or the little black kid that some white people see, when he goes down to the grocery store, that bags the groceries, is friendly, and he's acceptable, and he speaks well, all right? And Russell Westbrook has the look of a stereotypical thug kid, the stereotypical malcontent, that you don't trust around your daughter. I don't trust this kid. He looks like he's up to no good. That's why he's so marketable, to an extent. He's acceptable. That's why he does commercials with Barack Obama. He's an Obama Negro. All right? You're not going to see Monte Ellis or Russell Westbrook doing commercials with Barack Obama. Hate to break it to you, but it's the reality of America politics. All right? And marketing, which are intertwined, by the way. You go back and look at the roster that Tracy McGrady played with in 2002, 2003, which was his best season statistically. Only year he averaged over 30 points a game. And you see guys, you see all of the legends he played with, all right? All of the legends, like Mike Miller. Mike Miller is probably the best player he played with. And you can make the argument that Mike Miller is the worst rookie of the year in NBA history. Yes, he's still in the league. Yes, he is. But this is a guy who's a three-point shooter. You know, a 6'10" three-point shooter. You don't make much of those. You don't have much of those in the NBA. That's why he's been able to hang in the league. But he's not, you know, or never would be a star, an all-star. He never really was. Tracy played with the likes of Mike Miller, a 300-pound version of Shawn Kemp. All right? He played with guys like Andrew DeClercq. Grant Hill made cameo appearances that season when he was still going through his injuries. All right? He played with a bunch of guys who, like I said before, probably you would think they were on the FBI terror list for their names and shit. You know, terror watch list. You know, guys who you couldn't pronounce their last names. And he played with Darrell Armstrong. That's his roster. And they still won 42 games. Put him on Golden State Warriors. Let's see how good they do. They would do well, thank you. And the real reason why Golden State is so dominant isn't necessarily because of Stephen Curry, but because of Draymond Green, Harrison Barnes, and those guys. Before those defensive stalwarts got on their team, they were a team that could score a lot of points, but they couldn't stop anybody. They couldn't stop anybody because he's fucking overrated. Klay Thompson and Stephen Curry are overrated on the other end of the court. Yeah, they're scorers. Don't get me wrong. But when you got all these guys that's on the court that can score, that space the floor out like that, it's target practice. It's target practice. You put Glenn Rice in the fucking NBA now. You put Reggie Miller on teams like that now. Their 30-point per game scores. Their 3-point percentage was skyrocket. Their overall field goal percentages was skyrocket. It's not rocket science. I'm amazed at the stupidity of people in this world and the stupidity of people who fucking leave dumbass comments on my video. Now, some of you might argue, well, you talking about the lack of talent on the Orlando Magic team, that shows that there was no talent in the NBA. Well, let me show you something. Let me show you just a prime example of what I'm talking about when Tracy McGrady says the league is watered down now. You guys like to bring up guys like, oh, well, yeah, Tracy played with Michael Jordan and Shaq and those guys, but you got guys in the league like Kevin Durant and Russell Westbrook and Kawhi Leonard and James Harden. I mean, these guys are talented. Who played in those days, you know, with Magic and Bird and Michael? Well, let me show you something. Let me show you exactly what Tracy McGrady is talking about. Let's go back to the 86-87 season when Magic Johnson won the MVP award that year. All right? Let me show you guys something. All right. Magic Johnson won the MVP award that year. I think the Lakers won 65 games that year too, by the way. And that's also the same team that in that commercial, Ice Cube said that he thought that was the greatest team ever assembled. Know who's runner-up? Michael Jordan. Year he averaged 37.1 points per game. Imagine the hype. Imagine the hype and hoopla that Michael Jordan would have in today's NBA, averaging 37 points a game. Matter of fact, in today's NBA, that wouldn't have been 37 points. In today's NBA, he would have averaged probably close to 50. I used to think that was hyperbole, but now with the lax of defensive rules, you can't put your hands on anybody. The 3-second rule, 50, yes, 50. If he's taking 28 shots a game, and his 48% field goal percentage would be closer to probably 53, 54%, maybe 55%. He's averaging 50. He would shoot even more free throws than he did back then. He's averaging 50. But anyway, let's go back into 87 context. Michael Jordan, Hall of Famer. Third place on that list, Larry Bird, Hall of Famer. Let's see. Kevin McHale, next, Hall of Famer. Who's after him? Dominique Wilkins. Guess what, folks? Hall of Famer. After him, Charles Barkley. Guess what, guys? Hall of Famer. Who's next on the MVP listing? Hakeem Olajuwon. I think he's a Hall of Famer, isn't he, folks? Let's see. Let's keep going here. Because I'm going to keep going. Isaiah Thomas is next. The real Isaiah Thomas. Not the fraud in Boston, but the real Isaiah Thomas, the Zeke. The guy who many people feel is the greatest player ever under 6'2". Hall of Famer. The next guy, Fat Lever. Now, he's not a Hall of Famer, but for many years, he was the Jason Kidd of the NBA before the better version of Fat Lever, which is Jason Kidd, emerged. But Fat Lever was a tremendous point guard in the 80s, folks. He was a tremendous point guard for the Denver Nuggets and Portland Trail Blazers. So he wasn't a Hall of Famer, but he was a bona fide all-star. Who's next? Moses Malone. Oh, Hall of Famer, most definitely. Next, Steve Johnson. Now, Steve Johnson isn't a Hall of Famer, and he's not really known too much in the NBA now, but Steve Johnson in his prime was one of the better centers in the NBA. Finished his career, ironically, with the Golden State Warriors in the early 90s. Let's go. Karl Malone, Hall of Famer. Robert Parrish, Hall of Famer. Alex English, Hall of Famer. Mark Aguirre, Rolando Blackman, and Joe Barry Carroll round out the top 15 for MVP voting. Now, this isn't just one. I'm giving 1 year, but this is just a snapshot of what the MVP race used to be. Real bona fide MVPs. And you're wondering why people couldn't get, not even the great Michael Jordan, get unanimous voting for Hall of Famer. For MVP, excuse me. That's why. The league is watered fucking down. There's no argument about it. There's no argument that you can give me, to convince me that I'm wrong. There's none, because you know I'm right. I've been right for 10 fucking years. I got people who are cold tards who won't fucking admit that I've been right for 10 years. Tracy McGrady is right, folks. The league is watered down. I'm going to say this too. Now I think about it. You got players now. I will admit this. The NBA, the players are a lot more athletic. They're bigger, they're stronger, and they're faster. Now you can make the argument that some people like to use this argument of evolution. No, folks. The reason why these guys are bigger, faster, and stronger is because of the addition of weight training and also the addition of not so natural supplements. And you know what I'm talking about when I say that. Yeah, you got guys that can do, alley-oop, triple 360 dunks and shit. You got guys that can do all these tremendous feats of athleticism, but they don't have the fundamentals to back up their game. That's why you got a guy, I was just having a phone conversation with a good friend of mine. That's why you got guys like Amari Stoudemire, who was a guy who was very athletic in his prime, now barely hanging on. And he's not, if I'm not mistaken, Amari's not even 30 yet. If he is, he's just barely 30. But I don't think Amari Stoudemire is 30 years old yet. Or he's barely 30. And he got guys like Dwight Howard, who it's an embarrassment that this man is so narcissistic. He put himself on the same level as Muhammad Ali. And he put himself on the same level as the great Nelson Mandela and Michael Jordan. But this man doesn't have a fucking post game. And his lack of fundamentals was grossly exposed, as is others, when his athleticism evaporated. But you got guys in the past. You got the great centers. Patrick Ewing, for example. Rick Smits. Now, he wasn't a great center, but I'm using people who, once their physical gifts eluded them, they were still able to have productive careers. Grant Hill comes to mind because of their fundamentals. Now, let me ask you something. This is also why I feel that college basketball needs to be more front and center with NBA development. I think these guys need to stay the entire 4 years in college. Fuck that shit. They need to be able to. They have, because the lack of fundamentals is destroying basketball, and Adam Silver needs to address this. All right. Do you guys really believe that a guy like Chris Paul, that a guy, even better example, Tim Duncan, if Tim Duncan had not gone to Wake Forest and he went straight from college to the NBA, do you think he'd still be playing at age 40? Do you think he would have had the career that he had if he was not fundamentally sound? This is the problem with the NBA. This is the problem. Now, I will give Stephen Curry credit on this. He's very good when it comes to the fundamental aspects of basketball. But he wouldn't be as dominant if you didn't have guys who weren't able to recognize certain things in his game because they're not educated in playing certain players like that. I can watch these games and see, and I hate to put it like this, and some people not like what I'm going to say, but it's the truth. I see a lot of low IQ basketball out there, both on offense and defense. A lot of low IQ. A lot of shit that I'm thinking, my goodness, man, why couldn't I have been genetically blessed like these guys when it comes to athleticism? Why can't I be out there? Because I could see me, like, really, if I had this guy's gifts, my goodness, man, the sky's the limit. These people are fucking grossly uneducated when it comes to actually playing the cerebral aspect of basketball. And it becomes exposed when you get older. It's been many guys, many players who over the years have, when the athleticism declined, were able to adapt another game and stay productive in the NBA for many, many years. Bernard King comes to mind. You don't have Bernard Kings anymore. Once these guys lose their athleticism, it's over. Andrew Bynum comes to mind. You have a guy like the great Kareem Abdul-Jabbar trying to work with you, who had the most unstoppable shot in NBA history, and you say, I learned enough, man. I learned enough. You can tell me no more. What type of attitude is that? I have no sympathy for him. I'm glad he's out the league. Fuck him. But I'm getting a little away from the point of this video, though. But still. Well, actually, no, it's not, because it has something to do with the lack of fundamentals and why the league is watered down. And I'll say this also. All those players I mentioned, those were the cream. But there were still other players on those teams that were very good. Like players that were middling guys would be all-stars today. Guys like Hershey Hawkins comes to mind. Jeff Hornacek. Dan Marley, who someone actually fucking called a bum one time on video, and I don't even take that guy's opinion seriously anymore. Just so many different guys that could score on you, that could play defense. My goodness, man. I mean, I really wish that sometimes I could force some of you guys to sit down and study basketball beyond what you just know, and stop judging things from the prism of your own mind, and be released from the prison of your own mind, and actually look at the big picture and start to be like, okay, wow, I see certain things. You may not see things exactly the way that I see them, but I can see that a lot of you guys are grossly uneducated or miseducated. I'm sorry. You may not like what I'm saying, but it's true. And Tracy McGrady is correct 100%, 1,000%. Even though that's actually impossible, but still. to say 1,000%, but he's totally correct in his assertion. The league is watered down. There's so many different things you could say that I could say. There's too many teams, for instance. Back when, in the heyday of the 80s and 90s, there was only 23 teams and then 27 or 26 teams. There are 30 teams now. There's too many fucking teams. There are people in the NBA now who wouldn't even qualify in the NBA. They be playing in the old CBA. They're in the league now because there's so many more job opportunities. Put it like that. There's more job opportunities. It's like the company expanded. Instead of having 300 employees slots, it's now 500. But before, people who weren't qualified are now qualifying. That's how it is. And another thing, you look at the Eastern Conference. Look how weak the Eastern Conference is now. This is the weakest I've seen the Eastern Conference in my lifetime. Outside of the Cleveland Cavaliers, this is the absolute weakest I've ever seen the Eastern Conference in my life. I'm going to do a video. I'm trying to talk a friend of mine to do a video with me. And we're going to make an argument as to how much more depth there was in the Eastern Conference in the late 1990s as opposed to now. Outside the Cleveland Cavaliers, who grossly underachieved, in my opinion, they should be a team that's winning 73 games, not the Golden State Warriors. This is the most lack of dearth as far as overall talent I've ever seen in the Eastern Conference. Ever. Even weaker than the years when Jason Kidd's New Jersey Nets were going to the finals. I thought it was weak then, but it's even weaker now. At least back then, you had teams like the New Jersey Nets. All right, you had teams like the Milwaukee Bucks. I know 78 Sports TV remembers that team. The Milwaukee Bucks. You had teams that were at least appear to be up and comers, like the Boston Celtics with Paul Pierce and Antoine Walker was there. All right, you had the up and coming Detroit Pistons teams. All right, you had other teams. The Orlando Magic, like they were going to do something when Prime McGrady was there, but they were still like teams. The Pistons teams, not Pistons. Excuse me, the Pacers teams. All right, you had at least certain teams that looked like they could do something. It's nothing. It's nothing in the Eastern Conference now. I'm sorry. Like, I look at those Raptor teams and I'm like, wow. This is what LeBron has to contend with. They're going to go undefeated in the East, probably. But in conclusion, the reason why Stephen Curry was a unanimous pick is because he's going against virtually no competition in a watered-down league. And also because of marketing reasons. He's beloved. LeBron is not beloved. You can make the argument that LeBron should have been a unanimous pick his last MVP if it wasn't for an idiot who probably doesn't like LeBron personally and voted for Carmelo Anthony out of spite. People forgot about that, didn't they? LeBron was nearly a unanimous choice last time. But that's my opinion. And to those who don't agree with it, challenge it.